Good evening, my dears. Welcome to Lady McCreepsta's Night Noise Horror Podcast. Have you ever been so in love that you could feel it in every fiber of your being? In today's story by Redditor PPoisoningTales, one woman feels exactly this way. But alas, her love is unrequited. So how does she deal with that pain? Let's find out, shall we? Come now, my dears. Lean in closer, and we'll begin. How do you know someone is the love of your life? For me, it was in 4th grade. Kyle wasn't typically handsome, especially with his goofy demeanor, but he was tall and had a beautiful smile with a dimple on his left cheek. I just knew I wanted to make him laugh forever. He sat next to me, and I noticed that, despite having dark brown hair, he had almost imperceptible freckles. And he was so nice and funny, we soon became good friends. I only had the guts to tell him I was in love with him in 6th grade. Kyle told me he was sorry, but he didn't feel the same way for me, and he probably never would. He said we should distance ourselves until I could move on. It's been 20 years, and I haven't moved on. One could say I'm crazy. I'm not living my life for some guy I've never even kissed. I'm idealizing someone that will never exist. I don't even know what kind of person he's like because we lost contact after high school. This is mere infatuation, a childhood crush taken too far. Well, I can't prove you wrong. I just know what I feel. It took me forever to have my first kiss and lose my virginity. I always had to imagine it was Kyle, but nothing and no one could compare to him, so I would soon lose interest, sick of wishing for something I couldn't have. I moved away from my hometown, and sometimes I would talk to my friends still living there, and they would report seeing Kyle with some gorgeous girlfriend. I knew Kyle enjoyed my company, or at least used to when we were younger, and it hurt me to think that he didn't reciprocate my feelings because I wasn't pretty. I felt like the ugliest girl on earth, and I hated myself for a long time. I never had a movie moment where I just take off my glasses, straighten my hair, and become beautiful. Paul knew from the start what he was getting himself into. He was, in my opinion, too handsome for me, had a great sense of humor, and was such a gentle soul. Paul was the only one by my side when my grandfather died of pancreatic cancer and when my brother had a nasty car accident that put him in a wheelchair forever. And I was so lonely. I was so tired and desperate of feeling so much love for someone that barely remembered me. At 26, I had never dated for more than 3 months because I couldn't pretend anymore that my boyfriends were Kyle, and I couldn't stand kissing someone that wasn't. The saddest part was that sometimes I thought I was free from silently loving someone for so long, but only listening to his name made me shiver. The one-sided feeling wouldn't go away. It's not like I was obsessed with him or thinking about him all the time. I mostly lived my life almost forgetting about Kyle until the smallest trigger filled my heart with this persistent, unrequited love once more. Paul was patient. We took it slow. It was nice being with someone whose face I didn't need to replace by someone else's because I liked him. Paul really cared. I felt a warm feeling in my chest for him. If this was love, I don't know, but it was good. More importantly, it was good enough. After 3 years of dating, Paul proposed. We held a small ceremony and had a great honeymoon trip. Everything was fine. I was happy enough. I felt like it was the most I could feel for someone else. If I believed in soulmates, I'd say Paul was mine, but my wayward heart still insisted in remembering Kyle. Just the thought of him holding my hand flooded my eyes with tears of joy. It was so silly and embarrassing. I'm getting old and I'm terrified this feeling won't ever go away. I spent a few weeks dreaming of Kyle. Nothing in particular. He's just there. Sometimes we're young. Sometimes we kiss and my heart explodes into a million pieces of happiness. I remember telling him in my last dream, "I love you, Kyle. I love you so much. If you wanted me, I would leave my husband in a heartbeat." I woke up feeling weird and guilty, but my whole body was still fluttering just from seeing him. And then came August 2nd, 2018, the most hauntingly joyous day of my life. The day I woke up and Paul wasn't by my side. Kyle was. I watched him sleep for the longest time. I tried to recall the previous night, but absolutely nothing out of the ordinary happened. I didn't even leave the house, and we certainly had no visitors. I was sure it was a lucid dream. Kyle opened one of his eyes and smiled with his dimple after noticing I was watching him. He reached out to kiss my forehead, pulling me closer until I was nestled on his bare chest. "Good morning, weirdo." His voice was so pretty. Just then I realized I had never heard his adult voice before. I hugged him tight. Every fiber of his body felt so real. His touch was exactly what I imagined for 2 whole decades, but way better. He stroked my hair and kissed my head again, then got up to shower. I refused to move. I didn't want this to end. After a few minutes, he showed in the frame of the bedroom door, only a towel wrapped around his waist to cover the perfect lines of his body. "Don't forget we're celebrating my promotion today, Sammy." I don't even know if I answered. He called me Sammy. He always used to call me Samara, or even use my last name, even though I considered us to be good friends. "Come here," he said, and gingerly held my face between his large yet soft hands, placing a kiss on my lips. Kyle kissed me. After all these years, Kyle finally kissed me. Somehow he was at my house, wearing only a towel, staring at me with eyes full of adoration. I could barely stand on my legs, so I quickly went back to bed after we stopped being intertwined. He called me a lazy bunny and took off his towel to put on some clothes. I couldn't even look. It was too much, but my heart melted, floating through the stars. After Kyle left for work, I examined the whole house. His wardrobe was very similar to Paul's. I was in the exact same house, but all my pictures were with Kyle. I never was so much on social media, but all my digital files had me and Kyle instead of me and Paul. The contact named Babe had Paul's number, but Kyle's picture. Feeling lost, I called my best friend Layla. "Hey girl, do you think Kyle's hot friend will ask me out again?" She answered the phone cheerfully. Yeah, of course." "Do you have some problem? You don't usually call." Well, if I couldn't trust Layla, I could trust no one else. "Today my memory is a little hazy. That damn migraine. I bluffed, because I was too ashamed to admit that I had no idea what was going on. Can you remind me how I started dating Kyle again? Lila had memory problems with certain kinds of recreational substances before, so she didn't even think it was weird. Yeah, it was super cute. You randomly met when you were on your first job out of college, went for a drink, and you told him you still had a crush on him during high school. You've been together ever since. We talked for a few more minutes, and things started to make a little more sense. She told me about my small wedding and honeymoon, and they were exactly as I remembered them, but instead of Paul, with Kyle. I decided to accept that I had woken up in another reality. It was a weird explanation, but easy to believe. It meant I wasn't cheating on Paul, but it was true that Kyle was mine. Nothing could be more perfect than that. So what? That when he was barely a teenager, he told me with such confidence he could never reciprocate my feelings. He does now. Maybe in another world or another universe, but I finally got what I wished so hard for. That night, I put on my best dress and took a long time doing my makeup. Kyle picked me up and said, "To me, you are literally the most beautiful woman in the world." We had a few drinks and a fancy dinner, but I was impatient. I wanted to be alone with him. I needed desperately to have sex with my one and only love. It was an urge that made my whole body hurt and beg. I'll spare you the details, but when the time came to go home finally came, it was perfect. Amazing doesn't even begin to describe it. Kyle could barely keep his hands off me in the car. I wanted him so bad. I've wanted him for my whole life. I can't get enough of him now. That's probably why I ignored the signs. When I woke up in the middle of the night, Kyle was never there. He insisted I started taking sleeping pills, even though he was the one that was developing insomnia. When Kyle was with me, everything was perfect, but he mostly wasn't. He would spend days at a time traveling for work, then come back and lock himself in our house's small office. He would never answer the phone when he was away and would only message me in the middle of the night. Kyle started to show a constant paranoia of being seen by our neighbors and always postponed going to our hometown to visit family. He said my mother didn't like him. I was never allowed in the home office. He always dismissed me very gently but insistently. Sometimes there were weird noises during the night, but I never confronted him. Being with him was all I ever wanted. So what if he had a strange side? I didn't need to know. I was happy just knowing he was mine. Whenever Kyle was home, he would always make sure I woke up to seeing him by my side and make me breakfast. He spoiled me like a princess. I didn't want to meddle in his business, and I didn't for a good few months. After a particularly long absence, I decided to call his work. Doing that is not being snoopy, right? I just wanted to make sure everything was fine with my husband. The voice of an efficient woman answered my call, saying the company name. It was the same company Paul used to work for in my other reality. Hi, I'm Kyle Gannon's wife. I just wanted to know when he's scheduled to come back from his trip. Madam, we don't have a Kyle Gannon working here. You don't? Wait, why are you calling from this number? Is this a prank? No, it's not a prank, I swear. Then why are you calling from Paul Martin's house? Paul has been acting weird lately, she told me. Paul had been acting weird. How do I know Paul? How is it that Kyle has this exact same life Paul used to have? How does she know I'm married to Paul? How is there no Kyle? I didn't immediately confront him. Just one more night, I told myself. Just one more morning waking up next to him. I loved him so much. Paul is probably too far gone no matter what I do, so why can't I be happy, even if it is a fake happy? I finally had the guts to break into his office when he left for yet another trip. There was a horizontal freezer full of dismembered bodies there. I thought I would be more surprised, but deep down I knew it was going to be something like that. The weird noises, Kyle disappearing for a few days straight, avoiding people, even the dogs had been missing from our neighborhood. My husband is a demon. No, my husband is Paul, and the shapeshifter demon ate him. He told me everything after I found out about his frozen food. He ate Paul and decided to give me what I wanted. He manipulated a few memories, including Layla's, but at work he decided it was simpler to pretend he was Paul, taking his form. It would be too suspicious to make everything suddenly change, and he couldn't count on covering everyone that knew Paul. I loved Paul. I really did. I'm sorry I couldn't love him enough, and that these last few months were the best of my life. Knowing that Paul was devoured by a monster, and this monster has been living with me, does not taint this fact. God, I'm twisted. The shapeshifter is the only one that ever gave me what I wanted. Being with Kyle. And somehow, it's enough. He asked me to join him if I wanted to become one of his kind. He'll make sure I'm happy. He'll make sure I wake up every day next to Kyle, or even next to Paul if I miss him. Do I want to be fake happy forever? Yes, I do. And I can't wait for the ritual. If you enjoyed this tale, do let me know. Pop me a message on social media. I'm Lady McCreepster on both Facebook and Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, pop me a comment below. A very big thank you to the new members of my dark family on Patreon. I say this every time, but please know that I truly and sincerely mean it every time as well. Every little bit of support means the world to me and helps keep these episodes going. If you have yet to become a member of my dark family, you can become one for as little as $1 a month. Go to patreon.com/LadyMcCreepster for details. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, my dears. Till next time, sweet dreams.